Today is June the 4th, 2013. I'm Robbie Luckett. We are in the College of Liberal Arts at Jackson State University with Dr. Dollye Robinson. Dr. Robinson, do we have your permission to record this interview?
Of course, yes.
Will you begin by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how you grew up? Tell us about your parents.
Yes, I am Dollye Robinson, born in Jackson, Mississippi, living in the same house in which I was born at 1018 Eastview Street. I grew up in Jackson, went to the public schools in Jackson. I was awarded a scholarship to Jackson State University when I was in 11th grade, but I came to Jackson State. It wasn't Jackson State at that time, it was Jackson College, and I was brought over here every evening by the band director at Lanier High School to sit in at Jackson College in the band that was trying to be developed at Jackson College. Jackson College at that time had no real band. It utilized the students from the high school, which was Lanier High School, and the band director at Lanier High School was Kermit Holly Sr., and he would come over here in the evening to develop music at Jackson College. And when President Reddix played in the unit, and I played in the unit, and other people who were members of the faculty played in the unit, and high school people played in the unit, and this went on for quite a long time until we were allowed, the blacks were allowed to do a parade on Capitol Street. And all the units came through with their school bands. Tougaloo had a band. There was Campbell College had a band. All of the high schools in the state of Mississippi had bands. So it was thought that Jackson College should have a band also. They had been going out on the field playing at halftime and that kind of thing, but it turned out that Jackson College had no band. It had a band director, an excellent musician, but had not developed a band. The thing that led me back to Jackson College, when I had been employed at a high school, at Alexander High School in Brookhaven, Mississippi, that particular parade, for the first time, all the black schools that had bands were allowed to parade on Capitol Street. We came from Brookhaven with 65 pieces. We got up here, and everybody been talking about Dollye Robinson, you know. So they figured that Jackson College should have a band too. It had a band director, but not a band. They were utilizing the high school bands. When this parade, this is a sort of a background, but when this parade was called on Capitol Street, and we walked down the parade, everybody looked. Tougaloo had a band. All the people had a band except Jackson College. Lanier, Mr. Holly, took his people back to the band at Lanier High School. So they had this big band. Jackson College at that time walked down the street. Guess how many members they had? Just guess. 8. 8 members for Jackson College. And everybody started laughing about Jackson College. But the other, Campbell College everybody had a band except us. And then when I got back to Brookhaven Alexander School, I called President Reddix and told him I was ready to come and develop a band here. And he provided for me anything I needed, any of the people that scholarships or whatever. I don't drive, as most people know. He provided me with a driver to take me around some of the places where I had taught students in other places, high schools. I went and offered them on the spot scholarships to build a band at Jackson College. That's how we started the college band at Jackson College. The band director was a fantastic musician. William W. Davis was a fantastic musician, but he didn't know how to deal with students and come up with a unit. And of course, we worked so well together until that's how Jackson College band started at Jackson College. And then I went to starting on the school at Northwestern University and other places, and of course, Mr. Reddix then named me as chair of the Department of Music. And you know how much I knew about being it, but I was in charge, so I took over in charge and did the things we had to do at Jackson College. And then we added other people. I had to leave from being a band director, and then I recommended Esther Smith, who had been one of my students in Brookhaven, and all the Brookhaven people had been going to Alcorn because they didn't have a band here, except one person, that was Esther Smith, and he followed me to Jackson College. And he started doing kinds of things that needed to have been done to develop a band. That's how we got Miss Crozier here too. When she came and said she's so outstanding where she came from, and I said, you don't know anything until you come to Jackson College. That's the best place in the world to come. She believed me and came all the way from Los Angeles, drove up in my driveway in her big Mercedes. Oh, she was something. And I didn't have anything planned for her. I had done all my big talk out in Los Angeles about what I had and what we were going to do, and hadn't done anything really. But when I got back and found out when she drove up in my yard, I had to do, because I said I was going to do. I called Dr. Esther Smith and told him, look, son, you got to do something now. This lady has come all the way from Los Angeles to work on a degree in music that I told her we had and I was going to give her a scholarship for, and I have nothing. He said, well, that's all right. We take care of it. That's how she happened to have come here, to get in this place and do the kinds of things that had to be done. But then they moved me up from being a assistant band director. They kept moving me around. I don't know, there must be something about me that's mobile, that somebody feels I need to move from here to here. So without asking anything, just telling me, you going to do thus? And so I guess I was a brave person. I would just move up into places without being asked. At that time, blacks were not allowed to attend the board meetings, the college board meetings. And I don't drive. I didn't then, don't now. I said, well, I can't go because I can't drive. And this is now the time for John Peoples. And he said, that's all right. I'll see as you get to where you want to go. You're so brave and bad. And yes, I said, I'm going to walk up into the board meeting. I don't believe they're going to put me out. And they didn't. They were so shocked that I walked up into the board meetings and took a seat and said, I'm Dollye Robinson, Jackson State College, and I want to attend the board meetings. They said, what? I said, yes, I want to attend the board meetings. They couldn't tell me I couldn't. So that's how we started putting some blacks on the board, because I was an awful person, I guess. I don't know how I happened to have gotten to where I got. I just was brave, I guess. You had to go into places and take over. I did the same thing for the Mississippi Arts Commission and the Mississippi Humanities Council. All those places needed persons who could know the whole sphere, whole atmosphere, the whole background, and deal with all kinds of people, not just black people, white, Spanish, whatever. People needed to do what they needed to do. And that's what I have always done. I enjoy working with people, but I want everybody to have the same amount of input. You know, they don't have to be right, and they don't have to do what I say do, but you at least ought to have wisdom enough to, common sense enough to say what you believe is right for the students. And my whole thing has always been, what can be done for students? It's good to have faculty members. You know, it's good for all these PhDs, mine included, fine. But if you don't do anything to move students forward, you have no right to be at a university. I don't know where you could be, but you don't need to be at a university unless you can see yourself doing something for students. And that's one of the reasons how this building came to be. It needed to have been a place for students to grow. It needed to have been a place for faculty to see what a liberal arts building should look like. It needed for people to see, where can I go and grow, and entice students to come and have them to grow. And I said, one of the things we needed, was a building to house the kinds of things they ought to have. And since they put me in charge of being in charge of something, I said, well, let me look at what a building ought to have. If you're going to be liberal arts, you should have places for art in the building. That's how we happen to have had a lot of art in this building until the university and the state had enough money to build a building for art. But then I wasn't going to put them out in the shade. I work with them for development of that building, and then ask them to move out of this building into that building and leave some room for other people. That's how we brought military science into this building, because we were able to get art into its own building. It's a matter of, I have always believed, it's a matter of knowing what ought to be done for the development of students who in some ways and at some time will be in the same spot that you're in. And you need to do something to developing for them so they will know, what should I do to develop for the next person? It's not about you or yourself. I guess it could be, but I never thought about it as a personal matter. I thought about it as a growing matter for students to come. So when they come and look and they say, well, how did that come to be up there? And you will know, oh, military science was in liberal arts. And we did all the programs here. And as a result of that, they gave us this. Look at the other plaque. Look at all these came from making sure that the students know from whence we have come and how we can continue to grow. You can't become stagnant. I guess you could, but you shouldn't become stagnant. You just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And the new dean that we have here, I'm so proud of how you chose the new dean, because he has in his mind also moving forward for the students. And you can't move forward for the students unless you move forward with the faculty. You get the faculty on board, finding out what it is they think you should have for the growth of the university. And they will help you to grow. You can't do that by yourself. They say, oh, Dolly, you've been here. Yes, I have been at Jackson State University in a professional position for 60 years. And people say 60 years. I say, I know I don't look as if I'm 60 years old. Let's say I started just before I was 1 year old. I started working at Jackson State. And you can say you've been here all of your life, 60 years. It's still a blessing to know that you have done some things to make students grow. And you've done things to make faculty grow. And you've done things to make administrators grow. It's not, if you can't see growth in somebody, if I can't look at you 5 years from now and see, he's at the same spot he was doing I'm going to consider myself a failure. Because you're supposed to grow. Education is about learning. It's about growing. Regardless of what area you're in, it's a matter of growth. Growth for you, growth for your students. Most likely, and if you're at a university, you look at the name university. You're there. That tells you. You can get Webster's Dictionary, look that up, and it tells you you're supposed to be doing kinds of things to make students grow, to make the place grow in which you're working. But if you're at the same spot, young man, if I come back here 10 years from now and you're not doing anything else and you can't tell me anything you've done except I interviewed you, I'm going to consider myself a failure. And I'll do the same thing for you. I'm watching you. People might not know it, but Dolly's eyes are upon you. That's a creator. I don't know whether Miss Croce can tell you whether that's good or bad, but I like for people to grow. Put aside things that have been, unless those things that have been have caused you to move forward. But if those things that have been makes you stay in the same spot, then I would consider myself a grand failure. Now, ask me whatever you want to, and if I can answer, I will. If I can't, I'll say I can't.
I want to back up and begin to move forward. Will you tell us a little bit about what your parents did, who they were, and where you went to school? And
Yes. My father died. He was a railroad person. He died when I was a month old, on his way to work, on his bicycle going down to the train station here in Jackson. I was born in Jackson, and he fell dead on the way to work when I was 1 month old. So I never got a chance to know him. My mother had 4 children. I was a baby of the 4th. And each one of her children went to Jackson College and became college graduates. Now, she was not a school-educated person. She was an educated person by life and living. And she made sure that each one of her children went to school. We went to school here, elementary school in Jackson, junior high school in Jackson, high school in Lanier. All of us graduated from Lanier. All of her children came to Jackson College and graduated from Jackson College. And each one of them became a teacher. My brother became a teacher and a minister. He passed a long time ago. My older sister became a teacher, and she has passed. And the sister next to me was a teacher in Jackson, Mississippi, in charge of the science schools, all of the science programs in the schools in the city of Jackson. At the time was Central High School. I can't remember all the names, but she retired from Central High School as chair of the Department of Science. And she did a lot of things in biology and started the science fair here at Jackson College. So that, for the most part, will tell you about my family. She has retired. She's here now in Jackson. We're in the house, as I told you before, down at 1018 East 5th Street, where I was born, where all of us were born. I'm still living in that house. When the city decided it was going to do the parkway and all those kind of things, Dollye Robinson was the one who stood up and said, no, you're not going to take our property. You're not going to take it. You can put everything you want to put around it and behind it and beside it, but you're not taking the 1018 East 5th Street property. And they didn't. That was a interesting kind of thing. Miss Crowe can tell you about that. But I just decided that that was a home house. And there was no, I was born in a house. I've never rented anywhere. I didn't intend to. I didn't have to ever have to own a house because my father owned the property. So I wasn't going to deal with those kinds of things. I was something. It's a wonder, Miss Crozier, that I'm still here, but I am.
what did your mother do to support 4 children as a
She worked at that time, there was a project, and it was called a sewing room. They had kinds of things that the city and the state paid people to do. And it was called WPA, Work Progress Administration. And my mother was an excellent cook, and she was an excellent seamstress. So she was employed at both of those places to take care of us. So, you know, when you think about it, I don't know how Mama did that. She had 4 children. And we were never hungry. We were never misdressed or ill-dressed or anything. And we just felt like we were somebody. We never had to rent anything. She took care of us all right. She thought that she intended that all of her children would finish college. And as many as possible would get the master's degree. And I decided I needed a PhD. And at that time, the state of Mississippi would pay you to go out of state and get a degree just as long as you didn't try to enroll at Ole Miss or any of these other schools. They would pay you. And I had in my mind that I wanted to go to Northwestern University because my teachers at Jackson State, Dr. Evans and some of the other people, and Dr. Margaret Walker Alexander had gone to Northwestern. And they had almost groomed me as a student that when you get to a certain level, you need to go to Northwestern. And how difficult it was to get in, but they were going to get me in. And I decided I was going to get the degree from Northwestern. I got my Bachelor of Science degree here at Jackson State. I went to Northwestern and got a Bachelor of Music, Master of Music. I went to Boston University and came back to Northwestern to get my PhD. So it was one of those things, and at that time, this is before your time, young man, when they pay you not to want to enroll at Ole Miss. And I said, that's good, because I wanted to go to Northwestern because some of my faculty members here, Mr. Reddix had brought from Northwestern to Jackson College, what it was called then. And they were such excellent people. Dr. Michael Walker Alexander and Dr. Gloria Evans and people of that stature, they were just outstanding folk. And I said, well, I need to go there, to that school, where these people really wanted you to learn and made sure that you did learn. So it's been an interesting kind of educational experience. And when we talk to students now, it's interesting to tell them what you have to do. And now Jackson College, Jackson State, you do it also. You have to be on top of things if you want to be admitted to a university. It's not a matter of just being there. You better take something with you, and you better take something up here with you to help you to get into the kinds of things you need to get into. Those kinds of things that people ask me, how in the world and when did you learn about designing buildings? I said, when you go to Northwestern or you go to Boston, it's more than just going to class. They want you to have an open mind on doing the kinds of things that you need to do to help somebody along the way. It's not you anymore. That took a hard thing for me to learn. It's not you, because I thought Dolly was the best thing that God had made on this earth, and there was not another one anywhere. That's what I thought. And the people at this Jackson College and in the city of Jackson made me think that. Oh, I'm a female trumpet star. Oh man, I thought that was something. And they made all kinds of arrangements. Mr. Reddix made all kinds of arrangements for me. I could come here in the afternoon, the bus would come and pick me up, the only female trumpet star. A bunch of young men, we going out and playing the jazz nightclubs and things. And I just enjoyed that. I thought I was the Lord's gift to humanity. And it took a long time for me to understand that there were some other people in the world. But I thought I was it. And these people at Jackson College at that time helped me to think I was it. But it helped me also to think about the importance of all students. One just can't do it. I was just fortunate. But you have to think, as you all are doing now, in terms of all of the students. The lowest, the one in between, the one on top. Well, see, I couldn't see that until I was named in absentia chair of the Department of Music. That's when I thought about it, because I thought I was everything. And then when they said, I was at Northwestern, when President Reddix wrote and told me that the faculty had voted for me to become chair of the Department of Music. And I couldn't believe that, but it happened. But then it made me think about it. I've got to think of everybody. The students, the faculty, the staff, the persons in the community, the whole bit. And that helped me to get my mind straight that my name was Dollye E. Robinson, but I wasn't the only pebble on the beach. Somehow I was led to believe that there were some other pebbles, but they were not me. I was the top pebble. And it helped me not deal with students now to let them know that they're outstanding, they can do things, but it's my job as a leader at a university is to help them to understand how they can do better and how they can help other people to do better. That was a hard lesson for me to learn when I thought I was it.
What year did you come to Jackson College as a student? When did you start, and can you describe what Jackson College as a school was like then?
Yes, I came to Jackson College, must be 1944, I guess, or 48. And I was it. I think that's one of the things that's helped me to deal with students now. I thought I was God's gift to the world. And the teachers helped me to think I was God's gift to the world. The dean, H.T. Sampson, for whom the library is named, had me to think if there was another person in the world as good as they hadn't been found here. Mr. Reddix helped me to believe that I was a top pebble on the beach. I don't know how I turned out to be as good as I am, because I thought there was no other person. My sister had come to Jackson College. She's in science, and she became in charge of the science departments in the city of Jackson until she retired, Dollye Robinson, and she takes care of me now. My brother was in social sciences. My other sister was in English, and we did all right, I guess, but we weren't thinking the way we think now. It's I think if you were to compare what you deal with students now and what was then, now you have a better chance of dealing with students. They have a better chance of good living, but I'm not sure that we take as much time with the students as we should. We just sort of let them move along, and somehow they'll get to a place of graduation, and somehow, with a little funding, they'll go and get a master's degree. But we don't put our arms around the students the way that I like to see it happens. That you sort of embrace the students and let them know what the world is like and how they can contribute to making it better. You don't ever let them know everything is all right now. No, it's getting better, but we can make it even better. And how can that be, Dr. Robinson? Because you put your arms around the students, let them know what is out there, what can be, what should be, how can you help to make it be. It's a lot to learning and dealing with, and there's so many good opportunities now. Many more opportunities than what we had at the time. But it works all right.
What led to your love of music, and particularly the trumpet?
I'm from a musical family. My uncle was a fantastic trumpet player. My aunts were outstanding keyboard players. I don't know anybody there were two people in my family who did not do music. They were aunts who did not, but the rest of them, it was just musical family. And I guess I just turned out to be musical. My niece, who is in Las Vegas now, is a musician. She played and sang with Helen Reddy and all of I can't remember the names. And Roy, you can remember the name of those people Patsy was with, my niece, but I can't remember them all. We just from a sort of a musical family. My sister sings and she played the piano, but she didn't go into music. She's a scientist. She went into science, and she became the overall chair of sciences in the city of Jackson. I guess that's what they call them. Roy, was that what they call? Is that what they call them? I see your head bowing, but I didn't hear you. Yeah. So from my home, now my other sister was in the social sciences. I turned out to be a musician, but I haven't been able to practice it once they grabbed me and put me into administration. But it's amazing the likenesses you have with administration in music. You have to know which notes to play and in which way to do it, and just as you do in administration. You have to know, you ought to know what you're doing. You can't just decide at the last minute what you're going to do. You just need to know and be in charge of things. It's been a good 60 years at Jackson State, but it's a long, I hadn't thought about it till Miss Crozier and some other people started telling me the length of time I had been here. I didn't realize I was 60 years old. Well, it's less 60 years of work, but it's been.
What did students and faculty think of you as the female trumpet player, as you put it?
It was the most unusual thing for them, but as a result, I developed a lot of female trumpet players. The band director at a couple of high schools in Jackson graduated as female trumpet players. What's the name of, Roya, what's the name of the lady who is, she's a band director now, but she's a trumpet player. She's a band director at one of those high schools.
Jennifer Seton Lloyd.
What?
Is that Jennifer Lloyd?
Yeah.
At Hardy.
Yeah, she's a trumpet player. So it was unusual to have a female trumpet player. At Northwestern, it was really peculiar. They just couldn't understand. They just could not understand this female trumpet player at Northwestern. And I had to push myself. In fact, the band director at Northwestern University quit his job, retired, rather than have a black female first trumpet player in his unit. Now, I should never forget him, Bainham. When they sent me to him at Northwestern, if you want to apply for any of the performance units, you have to go to the head of that unit, and he will have you to perform for him, audition, to see whether. And when I went in for Dr. Bainham, he looked at me. He said, "You don't mean you plan to audition?" I said, "Yes, plan to audition for first chair trumpet." He said, that's all he could, And I looked the 2 days, he had retired. And Bainham was his name, I never forget it. And his associate, John Painter, was appointed band director at Northwestern University. All because this black girl turned up and decided she was going to audition. You weren't going to send her away. Well, the chair of that area said he had to audition me. So rather than audition, he retired. That was his problem. Didn't bother me. John Painter went on and auditioned me, and I became first chair. And John Painter kept his job. So you know how strange things happen, but they shouldn't make you angry about anything. You just find out that's the way people live. Some, and you accept that and move forward.
You mentioned you played in jazz clubs. What was that like?
Oh, wonderful. And they had all kinds of jazz clubs there in Vicksburg. And as a female trumpet player, I had a good time. And there was a bus that would come and pick me up on this campus. The young men were already on the bus, and they would come to the campus to pick me up to go with them to perform in the evenings. I had a good time. Now that I think about it, I don't know how the Lord helped me to make it, because it was some strange things going on. If you can imagine a bus with all male musicians and one female. And at intermission, you're men, so you don't know what I'm talking about. At intermission, these male musicians would grab these young women and try to run out to the bus or do whatever. And I was in the way because at intermission, I would normally go to the bus to read my lesson for the next day. Because it didn't matter that I was out playing all night. I had an 8 o'clock class. I had to get on this campus and be in that class. And Mr. Reddix gave me a room on campus that they could come directly to the campus and have a chance to go in, shower, and get dressed and get to my class. I don't know that the faculty members of that do that now. I just wonder if there are faculty members who would take the time and interest in students the way the faculty members did for me at Jackson College, and to be sure that I had what I needed to have, the whole business. And that's what I tried to do as chair of the Department of Music, to be sure that the students had what they needed to have and help them to get what they needed. I assume, now that worked for me for all of these years that I've been at Jackson State, but I don't know whether people do that now or not. I see people getting in their cars, leaving the campus when the class is over. I don't see a lot of folks staying on campus for students to come and see them after hours. Does that happen now? Does it happen, or do you know?
Depends on the faculty.
See,
Rarely, I would guess.
yeah. But see, when I was working here, it was an expectation for faculty to be available for students, not just for class time, but they had to post hours that they're going to be available. And sometimes you had to be beyond the posting that you put up there. I guess that's how we were able to groom so many outstanding students. And that you're still grooming them, so you must be doing something special.
Those clubs in Vicksburg, was that on Catfish Row? Was that what they called that?
Not at that time. But they just had quite a number of clubs. And they were white clubs for the most part. I think there was only one black club that we played in, but all the rest of them were white clubs. Because those people had a good time, you know. They were just happy and joyful, and all you had to do was sit up there and play. And then they had a thing at the front of the stand, like this. It was almost like a bowl. And they would come up and ask for certain numbers and put money in that bowl. So at the end of the gig, the leader, Collier Otis was one of the leaders, would collect all of this money and divide it among the persons who played. But they would just walk up there and this is bowl. They want Stardust or whatever they want to name it, and they put so much money in it, and they want Stardust. That's the trumpet people. You got to stand up, play. Stand up and lead, and let the others follow. Good times. I don't think people, Miss Crozier, you didn't do that, did you? No, guess not.
What was your graduate school experience like at Northwestern and in Boston?
Both places were exceptional. Northwestern was exceptional because, first place, I was only black in that whole arena. And people like Dr. Gloria Evans, Dr. Dora Washington, Dr. Margaret Walker Alexander had gone before me at Northwestern. They had made it clear that this little black girl was going to come to Northwestern. They had been outstanding. You know how outstanding Margaret Walker Alexander was. You know, Dr. Gloria Evans was outstanding. All of these people, these were few blacks, because they didn't take in many blacks at schools like that. Only outstanding ones. So when these 3 or 4 people recommended me, they just knew I knew I had to be outstanding. I couldn't be just a normal run of the mill. So I was accepted, and expected to do outstanding work. I couldn't do normal. Normal couldn't be for me because the persons who had gone before me had been exceptional. And when they recommended me, they expected me to be exceptional. And I don't know that I was, but they acted like I was anyway. So it's one of those things, some good things that happened through all of the times. We were able to, then I was able to recommend, and I did recommend other persons from Jackson State to come to Northwestern. Anita Jackson graduated here in music, and I recommended her for Northwestern. She went, and she got her PhD. It's just a lot of students that not a lot, but some special students I recommended to Northwestern, and some special students I recommended to Boston University. And they went, and they developed a claim. I guess people should be doing that now. Look at students, that's the way I did. I looked at them when they became here as freshmen and moved to sophomore, and I would tell them, you have the potential to go to this particular university. I'm going to watch you. And if that potential is developed, I'm going to recommend you. And if necessary, I'm going to help you. And that's what I did.
What was the transition like from Jackson College to Northwestern or to Boston?
I didn't have any problems because I had been taught by good teachers who had gone to these schools and they knew the expectations. And they'd come to Jackson College with those same expectations of us, that at the highest level, you got to be at the highest level now. So when you left Jackson College and went to Northwestern, that highest level was still there. It wasn't a transition. It's a matter of just continuing to do what you have to do. And I'm hoping that people are doing that now, faculty. You see these students, let them know the world is out there. There's a lot of good things, a lot of bad things, but you have to be able to discover what is the path that you want to take and move in that path. It's a good thing. And that's the good thing that I enjoy the most about leading students, talking to them. And I would have, here as the dean of the college, have meetings of the majors, majors and liberal arts majors. These are the things to expect throughout your college career and throughout life and throughout the various universities in this nation. And I don't want you to be squaring down, not knowing what to do, how to do it, anything. Open up your mouth, ask questions. Now some people don't want you to ask questions, you ask questions. That's not to say that people can always give you the answer, but if you're in a leadership position, you should be able to tell them where to go and find it. If you don't know it, where can you go and find it? So it's been one of the most marvelous things you can do, I think, is to work at a university where you have all kinds of students and all kinds of staff members and all kinds of faculty members, and know that they are there, expect that they are there, and don't be upset when you can't answer all the questions, because there is no one person in the world that can answer all the questions, but you ought to be able to answer some and tell the student where you might be able to find, don't be for sure, but you might be able to find an answer if you look here. It's just, education is something. It is really one of the most outstanding things that has happened to anybody in this world. Whether good, bad, or indifferent, education is interesting. And everybody will have a good part in it. I'm looking at all these things these people have around here. They have, Miss Crozier, that's some of the same things that were here when you were here, right? She can't talk, she bows her head.
Yes.
What year was it when you came back to Jackson State for good, and what was campus like then when you returned?
I came to Jackson State for good, in 1952? When Mr. Rex asked me to come back, particularly, see, they had certain reasons why they wanted you to come back, not just come back, they had certain reasons for you to come back. And his reason at the time, President Reddick's reason at the time, was to build a band. Mr. Reddick was a musician. He played in bands and stuff. And he sort of wanted to have a fine band. And the band director that was here, Mr. Davis, was a good person, excellent musician. But he hadn't had the experience of dealing with students and making them do what they had to do. But he was an excellent musician himself as a performer. He was an excellent musician when it came to arranging music on paper. But he didn't know what to do with students as a person. And I guess that's when I came in, because I could put you together and take you apart in 5 minutes. And he didn't have that kind of stamina. He was just a nice person. I'm nice too, but I don't play. You know, if you're supposed to be doing, you're supposed to be here in this line here at this time. That's where you're supposed to be. You're not supposed to be over here. And I don't say, I'm not the kind of person to say, look, move back over here. Man, I grab you by your collar and throw you over there and put you in place. And that's the kind of person he needed. I wasn't a mean person, I was just strict. And if I felt something was the best thing for you, I'm going to do it. Not for me, but for you. And as a result, people grew up to be pretty good people. I look at what happened to Dr. Esther Smith. He was one of the ones that I grabbed and threw in place. I look at so many of these students, people now, the former band director here, how he handled students. Not quite the way I handled, but he got them to do what they needed to do. It's one of those things. But life itself is interesting. I imagine at any university, here at Jackson State, you have so many different people, different kinds of people, that the first place you have to yourself be aware of the fact that you have a lot of different kinds of people, and they have a right to have their attitudes. Now, if you're in charge, young man, you are put in place to help them to reshape those attitudes to the best thing for them and for whatever you are. You're in charge of the Michael Walker Center. Certain things supposed to happen there. You're supposed to have certain things there, certain people there, a lot of things. Well, if you're in charge, what are you going to do to make it happen? You can't just walk around and say, I'm in charge, and it's going to happen. You're going to have to figure out some strategies to make it happen. Now, everybody's not going to like you because they don't want to do it their way, which could be a good way. But you yourself have to make a determination, is this the best way for what we have to do? Do we have in mind exactly what we're going to do here? Are you on board to help us get it done? If you're not, what can I do to help you get on board? You just can't put you out there and decide, okay, you're in charge, do what you want to do the best you can. The best that you can might not be the best for the university. Might not be the best for the person with whom you work. You have to have in mind a program that you believe will be fit for higher education. And that's what you're dealing with. Not just education, higher education. And you know, sometimes that's hard for people to get in their heads. What's the difference between education and higher education? That's a difference. And those of us who are leading programs are given the I don't know that you're given it, but the expectation is that you will know what to do to develop in these students and in the faculty and in the staff and in the administration. What can you do to make people realize that higher education is a wonderful thing, and if you're blessed to be in it, then it means that you should have some special ideas, some special attitudes, and some special reasons for being in it. That's what it's all about. And when you get to the point where you don't think it's special anymore, or you don't have any ideas on how to help to make it special, then you need to leave, you know, and help somebody else to fall into that position.
You've said a lot about Jacob Reddix. I was wondering if you could talk about some of the other presidents you served under here at Jackson State and talk about them and their times.
John Peoples was an excellent president. We were in school together, so we were on the dance team together. We did as students and stuff. And when he came back, what he wanted, and I wanted it too, was to be sure that the university was accredited. There were no black universities accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools and none of the other national associations. So John Peoples asked me if I would take on the job of getting Jackson State University accredited. I told him I will lead in the job, but I'm not going to take on the job. I will lead other people into it. So my first thing was going to the Board of Education, our State Board of Education here. I think about it because I walked up into that place. I can't think of the name of it now, the name of the person. But the person in charge just thought I had lost my mind. No blacks had been into their meetings. And I had just moved up in March here. Who is this? Excuse me, please. I was saying what had happened when I went to the Board of Trustees meeting. I would have Ms. Closure help me go through this scenario. But I said, well, I have to, if I'm going to do anything to help Jackson State to become accredited by sex, I'm going to have to be sure that we have the not only the knowledge but the support of the Board of Trustees here in Jackson, Mississippi. And the only way I could be sure of that was to go to the Board of Trustees meetings. And whereas blacks had not been allowed to go, I just walked on in. Well, there's no way for them to tell me to get out. There was a way, but they didn't. They didn't tell me to get out. So I walked in, I took a seat. And it became a normal thing that Dollye Robinson just gonna walk in and take a seat and have something to say in these things that are going on. Because Jackson College was a state institution, why do we have to not be involved? And I was just, after a while I was accepted. And I just did what was necessary to do. And the thing that was necessary to do was to be sure that we got accreditation by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. And there were no black people in it, no black universities. And once we moved forward and got Jackson College accredited, then the other universities in Arkansas and Alabama and Florida all had me to come and help them to move into the sphere of things. And I enjoyed it because I was helping people, I was helping students, I was helping institutions of higher learning. And it worked me half to death, but that was all right because we were doing things that helped people and students to move. And it helped because all of these places became, one by one, they became accredited by the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools. And once we did that, you could apply for accreditation of the national bodies. And that's what we did. Once we got the Southern Association accreditation, then we said we need to be accredited by the national, each one of the national units. in not only liberal arts, but also in the other areas. Mass communications got accredited. The people in the sciences applied for in their regional accrediting bodies. And once they got accredited by their regional bodies, then you could apply for accreditation by the national bodies, and that's what we did. So when people talk about Dollye Robinson and all of these things, I was just brazen, I guess. I was the one who just moved forward and said, we're going to do it, and I wasn't going to move back. And they won't allow you in this meeting. Well, I'm going. If anybody can drive me to the building where it's being held, I'll get in, and that's what I did. I know when you think about it now, I must have been out of my mind, but I thought I could do anything. Mr. Reddick had led me to believe I could. And then after he had done that, John Peoples said, well, Dolly, whatever you do, I'll stand beside you. And that's all I needed. The president will stand beside me. Do it. So it's been a good thing. That's why I guess it's hard for me to turn loose, and I guess I'm not turning it loose. The university, I've been here forever and lived through so many things with it. And the only thing that I can see now that will be helpful with this university, anything I can do to move it forward. I can't do like other people, retire and go home and that I did my duty and that's it. Can't do that. This is my university. And you can still have students coming to this university, and they still need the very best. You're going to have faculty coming to this university, and they need to know that somebody's going to stand with them when they're doing the right thing. But don't stand with them just because they're there. Because you need to, the right thinking person wants you to tell them when they're misstepping, so you can put them in the right step. It's been a good thing. It's still a good thing.
I'd like for you to talk about some of the faculty who stand out in your mind, and I'd like for you to particularly begin by talking about Dr. Margaret Walker Alexander.
I don't know of another person that I can say anything better about than Margaret Walker Alexander. Margaret took me under her wing as a student. She's one of the reasons that I went to Northwestern in the first place. She just knew how to treat people, students. You know, she had a certain way of carriage and a certain amount of just respect for students, made them believe that they could do. And if they didn't do, she could tear into them too. It's not just a matter of you so nice, Margaret would tell you when you're wrong, look you in the face and tell you you're wrong, what you need to do to correct yourself. Well, you couldn't say anything back to her because she knew what she was talking about. A different kind of person. She is one of the reasons, Margaret Walker Alexander and Gloria Evans are two of the reasons that I went to Northwestern in the first place. They were two of the most outstanding teachers that I mean, absolutely teaching. And then will let you know if you're wrong in no uncertain terms. She didn't just pat you on the back and let you go, you better be right if you're going up with Margaret. She knew a lot of people. She had met a lot of people, and she brought outstanding people. She brought them here to Jackson College for us to meet, for us to know them face to face. It was not just a matter of Margaret. It was a matter of intelligizing the students. She wanted them to know that these are kinds of people that you can become. She's a different kind of person. Different.
Are there other faculty who stand out in your mind?
There's a lot of them. But I think Dean Sampson was outstanding. See, these are people who would call me in and straighten me out. I wasn't the best person. There's no point in pretending that just because all these accolades now that I was a person, I wasn't. I thought the world revolved around me. And if you wanted to be in the world, you had to take care of me first. I was something. But these are people who said, well, they could see that I would become something. But I would have to settle down and realize that the world did not revolve around me, that there is a world out there, and if you want to become a good part of that world, you're going to have to do the right thing. And Margaret was the kind of person who sit you down and tell you that. Now, you play a fine trumpet, you sing well, you play a mean piano, all of that. But the world will not revolve about your trumpet, or your singing, or your piano, or you smiling at folks. You got to get something up here, and you got to get it now. Get it now. Mom would sit you down and tell you, well, that's what she did for me. It turned me around, and she said, I'm going to be sure, I'm going to put you in a place where the best people ought to take care of you. I'm going to make you be an Alpha Kappa Alpha woman, number one. That's what she was. And all these Alpha Kappa Alpha women are going to be on your case for you to do the right thing all the time. And she pointed out who you people were. And I corrected myself. If Margaret did a lot for a lot of people, and I'm one of them, I don't know that I would be where I am today if Margaret hadn't taken me and decided that she's going to make me do the right thing. Because I thought I was the right thing. I didn't see nobody else being right but me. I don't know how there aren't any students like that now, are they? Do you think there are any students like that now? You ever see any that believe that the world revolves around them? Well, I thought it did, but I found out pretty quick it didn't if I wanted to move forward. And once I decided that I'm just one of the many people in the world who can do a lot of things. I'm just one of the many talented people in the world. And there are some people more talented than I am. I don't know what I don't know. Because I just walked up to the people and told them we needed a building. Liberal Arts needs a building. And those people thought I was crazy. I said, no. Liberal Arts is everywhere, every little jippy-jap across this campus. And we need a building. And I will help to design it. And I did. See, you don't come up with a lot of things saying what you need if you can't do something about it. If you think that this university needs a particular thing, you believe that. Well, what you gonna do about it? Tell somebody else to do it? That won't get it done. If this young man thinks that certain things ought to be done to make the Margaret Walker Center move, bloom, he better have some ideas himself on what to do. At least, it's not to say that somebody's going to do it, but at least you have some ideas on what ought to be done. Unfortunately, a lot of people can talk about what ought to be done, but they don't have the faintest idea on how to do it, who should do it, how to do it, when to do it, and with what you can do it. See, if you're going to make some suggestions on things, you ought to have at least 2 of these, perhaps 3. But you know, if you're going to say what a person ought to do, you ought to know something yourself to do about it. That might sound bad, but it's true. We have a new dean here that I'm hoping everybody will work with in the College of Liberal Arts. And you have people already who's criticizing. And I ask the question, how can you correct it? Well, I say that's the problem. All you can say is well. Well won't do it. You got to move beyond well to get it done. But we have some excellent people here in the at Jackson State and in the College of Liberal Arts. It's going to take some working together. It's going to take some people being very open by saying and questioning, what can we do to move it forward? And listening. That doesn't mean you have to take all your ideas, but at least listen. A lot of things can get done just by people listening, not even committing. Because you can't commit to everything. If you do, you're in a jam, you know. You're pitiful if you commit to everything. But you listen, just as you two are doing now, listen. Now when you go back and look at all of this stuff, you also have the right to say, this doesn't make sense. You have a right to say, this could work. You have a right to say, maybe we can try this. But you don't have to. I think one of our problems is, in mine it has been that way too, but as you mature, you'll find out that there's a problem committing too early. You do just what you two are doing now. You're not aware of what you're doing. I am. You're listening. You're listening. But that's not to say, because you listen, you have to do what is being said. One of the best things that God has given to us, these 2 years, for folk to listen. He gave us something else that ought to be all right, but sometimes it's the worst thing in the world. This right here. You talk too much without having the background for what it's going to lead to and what you can do about it. But this means a lot. And even this, at the end, will allow you to have control over this.
Are there events in the history of Jackson State that stand out in your mind that you experienced over the years, or are there things that happened in Jackson State's history that stand out for you?
So many. There's so many things that stand out. So many things. There's one thing that, what was the thing that, Miss Crozier, you can help me on this, maybe. There was something that Dr. Peoples had put in place that was supposed to be taken out at a certain year. Do you remember that?
Time capsule.
Yeah, a time capsule.
Time capsule. It was an obelisk over near the, behind the President's building.
Okay.
That's the first thing that Mason got rid of when he came.
The first thing what?
That Mason got rid of.
That's the one thing that stands in my mind. I can't understand why.
Time capsule.
Nobody can tell me why that was done. Because it was supposed to have been taken up in a certain year. And just, Mason just came and just demolished it. Don't need it. Didn't ask anybody. Didn't say anything. We looked up, and we were amazed, those of us who graduated from this institution. And you can give no reason, just don't need it. I still don't understand it. And I'm waiting for him to come to Jackson, so I'm going to ask him, was there it had to have been a reason. It wasn't in the way of anybody. It was some documents in that particular capsule regarding the history of Jackson State that would be very useful now. But we don't have it anymore. A lot of things. But the good thing is, we are here. We got good people like you, two young men. It's going to do a whole lot of things to keep this university moving. And the good thing is, it's going to move. It's too good an institution. It's for too many good people to let it go down. It is not going down. And I think this new dean that you have has in mind some good things for working with the people in the College of Liberal Arts and with the people at this university. to move it forward. As he's a young man, he has a lot of vitality. He wants to move things forward. He's willing to listen. But the one thing that I've discovered, a lot of people say they listen, but they don't act upon what they heard. But that's all right. Nothing's wrong with that, because you don't have to do what you hear somebody telling you to do. And if everybody did what they were told to do, this world would be messed up, and we would be in one big problem. The good thing is listen. And once you listen, you make a determination in your own mind based upon your ability to think as to what are you going to do with this information that you're listening to. Is it worth you doing anything with? Or was it just good conversation? Nothing's wrong with good conversation. Nothing. I've taken up so much of your time, will you give me?
I know we've talked for a long time, but I do have just at least one or two more questions.
Okay.
And in particular, I'd like to know how you felt when this building was completed and you moved into the Dolly E. Robinson College of Liberal Arts building.
How I felt? I was overwhelmed. See, I had worked with the architects, and I had worked with the outgoing president and the incoming president on this building, on what ought to be in a College of Liberal Arts. Getting their ideas and giving to them my ideas on what ought to be. My thing on that was liberal arts, in my estimation. Now that might be just my own biasness, but in my estimation, liberal arts is the heart of a university. And as a heart, just like the heart in your body, you hear the throbbing, that kind of thing. That keeps you going. If you had no heart, any throbbing of the heart, you'd be dead. I'm thinking that liberal arts is the heart of any university at any place at any time. And it should house the kinds of things that will help students to grow. And that was a proposition that I put forward when I said we need a College of Liberal Arts, a heart of the campus. In that college, you should have English. Everybody needs English. Everybody needs history. You know, there's certain things you just got to have in a university. And I felt that we needed that in the College of Liberal Arts. And as we grow and enlarge ourselves, various units can peel off to go to other places. But for the first part, put them all together. Get them all, be sure that we have art in the building. And I worked with art until we got to a place where art could have its own building. English, important. History, important. And mass communication. Political science, psychology. I started naming off the things that ought to be in this building and working with the architects on kinds of things that ought to be. And they worked with me. So it was a good getting together, getting things done. But at that time, I wasn't aware of the fact they don't call it the Dolly building. You know, that didn't matter. What mattered was that we had the units in it that would help students to understand that these units go together, would help faculty to understand that these units should work together because they go together. And that's what has happened. And as we enlarge and get larger and larger, peel off to go to the various places. Take art. It got bigger and bigger and bigger. Good. Help it to grow, but give it a building. You know. Mass communication, as it grows, give it some space. Military science, bring it back into where it belongs. Anybody all the students ought to know something about military science. Military science ought to know something about all of the units, because we had put military science in another building. It's just a thought process that I had, and worked with the people in liberal arts, and they worked with me to produce what has to be produced. And everybody didn't agree with me, and they shouldn't. It'd be so sort of sad liberal arts if everybody agreed with what I have to say. But it's a good thing, and I'm glad we have you, young man, to look at all these things and put them together in a sensible manner, and cause people to come together and talk about how they all mesh, that they all are important, and they all can fall under the Margaret Walker unit, and that's what they're doing. It makes a difference if everybody understands the importance of being together and what we have to do. So that's what we're doing.
Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you feel like we need to talk about?
I can't think of anything other than working together for growth. Don't stand still. Just because we have it this way now doesn't mean it has to stay this way. Just get people to think big. Think how you can add to things. I'm a great one for seeing how you can add to. If you stay in the same spot too long, you become stagnant. You don't want to become stagnant. Now, if we can think of any kinds of things, I think at every meeting that you have, faculty meetings, talk about what is possible. It might be impossible to do now, but I have always wanted to think of what is possible for us to do for the benefit of the students. Not for the benefit of Dolly or the benefit of you or anybody else, but this is a student-oriented place. They're going to be here much longer than we. And if they can leave Jackson State University with some processes in mind, that this is what I learned at Jackson State, and this is what we can do to enhance it. Enhancement is an important word. And if people can put that in their vocabulary, this would be a wonderful word. Enhancement. Enhancement. Even if it's not very much to do, but it's a better way of doing it. We can change what we do now to make it better for the students. If people can understand the universities are for students, they're not for faculty, administrators. We are just here to enhance the students. And then when they leave, they will enhance somebody else. Some other students will come, and they will be enhanced. A university is a marvelous thing. It's a wonderful thing, but we have to think of it as just one little piece of our entire lives. It's just interesting. Makes life interesting. But if we just think it as it is, it becomes stagnant. And you no longer want to come to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. And you no longer want to come at 6 o'clock in the evening. In fact, you no longer want to come, period. But we are blessed with people such as you two who know what life is about and know what can be done to enhance the life and living of students. And in the process of enhancing the life and living of students, you enhance yourself. Think about it. You would not be where you are, nor would you be thinking about where you're going this afternoon when you leave here, if it were not for a process of enhancing your life and your living and your learning. If you're just here for But just to be here, it's nothing, I don't see anything that's be too good about that. But it's a different kind of thing if you know that what you're doing is an enhancement to self. And enhancing self, you enhance all of that around you. But if you cannot see that one thing of enhancing self, what is all this other stuff about? There would be no real life living for life, without self-enhancement. And when you go to bed tonight, you get a good night's sleep. You wake up in the morning feeling refreshed because you have enhanced to yourself. But now if you go to bed mad and ugly and all that kind of stuff, you're going to wake up in the morning mad and ugly, and you're going to have a headache, a stomach ache, and all kinds of aches. Don't need any of that. You just know that each day is a good day, that all of us could do something good. It might not be what somebody else wants, but you always, each day, young men, each day you think of something good that you can do to enhance yourself. Now, all of this other stuff that people got you mad about or didn't do what you told them to do, put that aside. That happened. It's over. Over and done with. But the next day is a good day. And that's what you're into. Good days. And help these students to the best you can with the good days.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed this. Miss Crozier, I don't know when I've had a